All right, and you are watching Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you for being there for us. Now, before our conversation on the task ahead for the new service chiefs, let's take a look at this package, put together, rather, by correspondent Joseph Olsen.
I'm going to appoint.
Some are calling it a major shake-up, others a reset for a renewed hope, and for many, a step in the right direction, depicting a sense of nationalism and inclusivity. These are phrases and statements trailing recent actions taken by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, especially in the appointment of service chiefs. The comments are drawn from the timing, capability, and geopolitical spread of the appointment. The chosen ones are Major General Christopher Musa, Chief of Defense Staff; Major General Taoreed Lagbaja, Chief of Army Staff; Rear Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, Chief of Naval Staff; Air Vice Marshal Hassan Abubakar, Chief of Air Staff; and Emmanuel Odendeyi, a Major General appointed Chief of Defense Intelligence. They are expected to put a stop to insurgency, banditry, oil theft, and other threats to national sovereignty bedeviling the country for years, as well as reinvigorate the military as a reliable and formidable force. For the Nigerian police, the new Acting Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetukun, will be facing the daunting task of curtailing kidnapping, increasing cybercrime, cultism, and perennial communal clashes, among other insecurities spread across the country. And for the Nigerian Customs Service, the proliferation of illegal arms and smuggling of contraband goods, and still maintaining the status as one of the highest revenue-generating industry, stares the new Acting Controller General, Adeniyi Bashir Adewale, in the face. Backed by the Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, his National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribado, and other support aides, the expectations are high, and citizens who have for long demanded restructuring of the security architecture for better service delivery can only hope for peace to reign. But are these chosen ones reflecting round pegs in round holes? With national outlook, Nigerians have been yearning for to confront multifaceted security challenges. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will give their perspectives soon.
Thank you very much, Joseph Hussein, for that background. With us to discuss issues around the new appointments, of course, we have two regular guests on Good Morning Nigeria. In the Abuja studios, Dr. Kabir Adamu, who is a security risk management expert. Dr. Kabir, we're glad to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, and from our JOS Network studios, would like to welcome Brigadier General John Temlong. He was the first commander of the Multinational Joint Task Force and former president of the Alumni Association of the National Defense College. He's a security consultant. General Temlong, glad to see you this morning.
Thank you very much. Glad to see you too, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, it's once again good to have you with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. Well, there have been huge expectations by Nigerians from, of course, the new President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, especially in the areas of appointment. And we are beginning to of course, see the actions being taken by the new president with special concern on the new service chiefs that have just been appointed by the president. And of course, today we intend to take a look at the task ahead of the new service chiefs, with respect to, of course, what the country has been going through for decades now. With insecurity in the country. And I'd like to start with a core professional in this area, and that's General Temlong, to kick off, and address your mind to the appointment made and whether the rightful choices with respect to the various, sections of the Nigerian military corps.
Well, thank you very much, Kirian. I think what the president has done with the armed forces is to have put round pegs in round holes. If you start with the Chief of Defense Staff, General Musa, he has proved himself a warrior, an officer who has met all the requirements of senior level management. He has proved it on the field, and he was, during his period as the theater commander, that the Boko Haram will really roll back seriously in Maiduguri, in the northeast area. And so he comes in with a lot of experience from fighting those people. Because what you need now is experience blend at that place with a strategic requirement to be able to meet up and blend the three forces into a joint operations. And so he is aptly qualified to do that. If you look at the Chief of Army Staff, General Lagbaja, you find out that when the situation in Kaduna State and one division area of responsibility was getting out of hand, it was General Lagbaja who was drafted to that area, who actually stabilized the situation in Kaduna within a very short period. He was, of both of them, the CDS and the Chief of Army Staff, officers who led from the front. And that's what motivates soldiers, because soldiers want to see a warrior, and then they follow them. So he was quite instructive. And if you look at their records too, the courses that they have attended prepared them seriously for these sort of assignments that they are facing. For the Chief of Naval Staff, he has had a lot of experiences too. He even operated in the Okomok operations. So you find out that there is a lot of experience being brought to bear. He has commanded many ships. He has been involved in the anti-piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. And the good thing about it is that they are all cosmates. The Chief of Air Staff, in his own case, he has even attended infantry courses, the amphibious course. And so working with the army is not even a problem for him. But the beauty of it is that the three service chiefs, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, are cosmates. They have built a relationship over a period of time, and right from cutting their teeth as cadets. And in fact, for two of them, they were ex-boys, enemies, so they started even from secondary school. So you will see a synergy that will come in with this appointment in such a way that they'll be working as brothers, as a team. And that's what you need, because you need synergy to fight what is going on. You need the system, the armed forces, to work as a joint force. Because in joint operations, everybody brings onto the table the speciality and the competencies that they have to mix up into a mixed ball that will produce something bigger and much better, a better cocktail that we'll be able to use to achieve the objective of state. So I think what the president has done with the service chiefs is fantastic. The Chief of Defense Staff is their senior right from NTA, and they know him. And so the question of looking down on him will not even be there. But he should be able to bring them together to work as a team. For the police, I think he has spoken, but I think what the police need to do is to look at fighting crimes not like a tiger or lion, but be able to look at how crimes are being fought in other crimes. Crime prevention, crime detection before you fight. He has a Herculean task to go. He has to do a lot of institutional reforms. He has to do a lot of work on his personnel, and not him alone, but all of them, because in the end, it is the human being. It is the man behind the gun. It is the man behind the equipment. It is the man manning those optics that makes the difference. It's not just the technology or the equipment that you have. And so if you have a coward behind a gun, one shot, he will run away. If you have somebody who is not proficient using a very expensive IT equipment or technology that you have brought, it will be as good as nothing, deploying just dummy around in the field. So the whole thing is that there must be some motivation, capacity building, training, and retraining of the personnel to bring them up to the standard that will meet the challenges of the 21st century. Because what you are dealing with is people who sometimes we think they are not literate, but they are very literate. They know what they are doing. They know their onions. They live within us, and they are doing what they should do. So I think for a start, that's what he has done. I won't comment on the NSA for now. As we move on, I will comment on those areas that will require the synergy of the Office of the National Security Advisor. So thank you very much for this opportunity, Kingsley.
General Temlong, thank you very much for the initial comments that you have made. We'll come back to you presently, but let's return to the studios and Dr. Kabir Adamu. Dr. Kabir Adamu, let's contextualize these appointments. What ordinary folks see are new service chiefs who have been named to replace the former service chiefs. The National Security Advisor, who had also been in office for nearly 8 years, has also been eased out. That's what the ordinary folks will see. And of course, people will get to some reductionism as to say, oh, where does this person come from? Where does that person come from? But at a more strategic level, we have the National Defense and Security Strategy document. Without getting into details, these are some of the points that you have raised from time to time on Good Morning Nigeria. How does all of this fit?
Thank you. So this is a first step when you have, as it were, commanders to head strategic arms of government. In this instance, I will call them MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies. It's the first move. What you have done is, on the basis of, in this instance, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima, they have put forward an agenda under their Renewed Hope manifesto. Now, that agenda, there was a 7-point security agenda, as it were, security sector agenda. And what I assume what they've done is to identify individuals that they believe are capable of helping them achieve that agenda. And if we look at that agenda, it aligns almost 100% with the objectives of our revised National Security Strategy 2019, as well as the other, like the defense policy and all of that. So it is assumed that once this individual take office, they will pick up those documents, do a SWOT analysis. The previous occupants of those offices, they've done, in their own beat, attempted to implement some of the objectives of both the national security, revised national security strategy, as well as the other policies. But there are gaps. And so I'm hoping that doing that type of SWOT analysis will help them identify the gaps. Before then, one of the most noble things that the immediate past government did is the transition, institutionalized transition. So a transition council was raised, and that transition council worked extensively. I supported that work, so I know extensively in reviewing the past 8 years. And in the area of security, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Police Affairs, and several other ministries that have contribution in security were captured adequately in that document. And if you recall, during the inauguration activities, the current president was handed over the report. So I'm hoping that that report has been cascaded down to these individuals, and they would have looked at, in any case, they contributed to the document. Some of them were senior management staff of this MDA, so they contributed to that document. And the beauty of governance is that most of the PAMSECs that are currently occupying those ministries and they supported that process, and they are now still in that office. And of course, there will be an interface between them and these persons that take over responsibility. So that type of interface will allow the new occupants to know the gaps And then, of course, where they need to come in with new ideas that aligns with the objectives of their principals, in which case the president and to an extent the vice president, then they will be able to tell them that, Your Excellencies, this and this is what we need to achieve that objective. So from a strategic point of view, this is kind of what we anticipate and what we expect.
Okay, I want to take my next question from one of the points that you raised concerning the document that has been there, but perhaps have not been implemented. We've had series of documents of that nature in the past, not just in the defense sector, but other sectors of our national life. But what we keep getting in the implementation aspect of it is some not total failure, but something that is unsatisfactory, and therefore, did not achieve its major objective. But in this connection, I'd like to bring in General Temlong once more. You also said something, sir, with respect to, you gave us a resume of some of the, in fact, all the service chiefs that have been appointed. You noted also that they are classmates, and then you expect to have synergy. Now, one of the major issues that challenged the military in the past is lack of synergy, because some of the, in fact, all the service chiefs appointed by previous administrations had also professional pedigree that qualified them to get those positions. But what happened after that is another story to tell, because of course we cannot say that security has been reduced to the bare minimum as it is at the moment. So expectations are that the new appointees are going to inject new blood, new strategy to be able to synergize and see how they can collaborate and perhaps reduce criminality to the barest minimum. Now, what should they be doing? Since you said that classmates, what should they be doing to see that whatever strategy that has been, put out by the president can be accomplished?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Let me commend the service chiefs, the CDS and the service chiefs who are leaving, because they brought in a lot of synergy into the system, because the service rivalry that was hitherto the norm was really close. They worked actually as a team. So I think they bridged that gap. We should commend them for that. General Arabo, General Farouk, and Abawo and Gambo and their team, they really brought in a lot of synergy into the fight, this thing. Now, what do you expect these present crops to do? Because having worked with these new, these outgoing ones very closely, and having seen firsthand how joint operations are supposed to be carried out, and how the effect of synergy has actually helped. Because it was that synergy that really brought General Musa the successes that he had in the Northeast. Now, what they need to do is actually look at what are the strategic objectives, so what are the end states that the president is going to give them, coupled with what the Nigerians are expecting from them. Now, they look at it and review what has been going on and see how they can move ahead. Because they have to look at the documents that have been given to them. Apart from the documents, there are key players. Like Kabiru said, some of those transition documents were prepared by some of them because they were in the headquarters. So they did bring input. Now, when you look at that and then you look at what your boss wants, what are the end states that he wants you to achieve, it is from there that you draw out your strategy to achieve those. And that has to be coordinated by the Chief of Defense Staff, who sits down and look at what the three services are doing. And then in synergy with other elements of national power. Now, in these things that we are doing, we need to move more and look at how we bring in the whole of society approach, the whole of government approach, because the synergy that is expected to get from the subnational governments, we are not getting them. So we need to look at this thing as a holistic, because the concept of hard power to fight these things will have to be redesigned, because it's mostly soft power components that should be able to carry out those things. And the role of what the state governments, the communities, the local governments in bringing peace to Nigeria must be brought to the fore. So the role of citizens have to be actually brought to the fore and synergize with what the hard power component should be doing. The hard power component, I have said, postulated before, is between 20 to 40%. Let the bad people know that you are there, and once they attempt anything bad, you meet them with force. You will know that part of the important thing for the military is that the military is not trained to kill or shoot its own citizens. The military is trained to defend its citizens, so they are working in very difficult environment. People sometimes don't believe or don't understand the situation that we are going through. Because what you are trained to defend somebody, and then it's difficult for you to turn that gun that you are defending to shoot him. Yes, he has done something against the state, but then can he be rehabilitated? Can he become a good citizen? So it's in very extreme situations. And then you look at it that even at the United Nations level and with our defense policy, the first role of the military when they are deployed is to protect civilians. So you find out that these ones will be brought to the fore as they are preparing their strategy to meet up the objective of the commander-in-chief. And I believe that they will be able to do that as quickly as possible, since they are not new in the situation. They have been hands-on on the job, and they should be able to review and see. But most importantly, I think they should be thinking seriously about incorporating technology as a force multiplier at these very initial stages to be able to accomplish this task within the shortest period. But it is the population, the citizens, that if they decide that we will not have and harbor these bad people within us, that will make the difference for us in these asymmetric operations that we're carrying on in this country. It is no quick fix. People believe that it's something that you can go and kick, but they are within us. They are being aided by us. Their oxygen is the citizens. And so if we have to cut off that oxygen, it is when they will die. So they have a very great challenge that they have, but they are capable. They are not bringing them new. They have been within the system. A lot of them have had very serious tours in the operational areas. And so with hindsight, they'll be able to bring in their experience at the strategic level to make sure that what was lacking or what is how they are not doing it well should be done properly at this time now. So I think we'll be expecting quite much from them, and they know that the expectations are quite high, and so they must live up to it.
Once again, General Temlong, thanks a lot for your input into the conversation. Dr. Kabir Adamu, part of the inheritance of the new service chiefs is what John Temlong has already talked about, General Temlong. Those in the public space have heard less of the inter-service rivalry that seemed rife in the past. So the outgoing service chiefs, or if you may, the former service chiefs, are having this transferred, as it were, to the new helmsmen. We also heard under General Irabo and the service chiefs, less complaints about equipment. And some of the other perennial complaints, which were of a personal nature, rotation, low morale, even amongst your foot soldiers. How can these items of inheritance from their immediate predecessors be ramped up to achieve more beneficial outcomes?
Yeah, I would align with General Temlong and yourself to commend the former service chiefs, the strategic direction and leadership that General Irabo provided. I think allowed a lot of things. Number one, it allowed the synergy that we all admit to now. And more importantly, he attempted to enhance the professionalism of the military, their core mandate. I have been in instances where the political side would want him to be the front of certain events, but he will insist that it is the role of the police, and the police will now be given that. And that is what we need, because most of our challenges, in fact, if not all our challenges, are internal security issues. And we need those components of internal security to be strong so that the public would relate more with them and the military now take its traditional responsibility. And I think that is, for me, number one of what General Irabo and the other service chiefs attempted to do. And if anything, that is what I will urge these new service chiefs to pick up from and return the military to that professional role that we understand it to be. It's a misnomer that the military is on the street. And I don't want to be misinterpreted to think that the threat elements that we have in the country at the moment do not require military confrontation. They do. But the point is, they should be supportive of the internal security departments that we have, especially the police, and the former service chiefs allowed that. The government, and by the government I mean a combination of the executive, the three arms, executive arm and the legislature, we must also commend them. When President Buhari took over in 2015, the budget for security was around 900 billion. By the time he left, it was 2.3 trillion this year. And so what that meant is that the equipment repository of all the security agencies, particularly the military, has increased to a point where the Nigerian military is almost enviable in the African continent at the moment. I don't want to go into the details of that, but the platforms that are currently in the possession of our military is quite good. And so that platform, there is no the effectiveness of a military is quite dependent on a couple of things: the equipment repository, the training that they've been able to acquire, and we must also commend the immediate past government for achieving that, and then of course the welfare. Now in welfare, a lot has been done, but there are still so many things. Let me just use one example: the type of weapon that they are using. If you compare what the threat elements in somewhere like the Northeast have and what our own soldiers have, sadly, there are areas for improvement. I don't want to go beyond that. And then the vehicles that they are using. It's still quite unfortunate that some of our troops in the front are still using soft-skinned vehicles, which is quite unfortunate. And then communication. One of the last things that President Buhari did is to launch a communication platform. Now I don't know how well that platform will extend to the field, because no matter how good your planning and strategy as well as implementation is, if your communication has vulnerabilities that the enemy can listen in on, then sadly it will be useless. The enemy can anticipate your next move and then of course thwart it. So we need to strengthen and protect the communication within our security sector. All of that I think are work in progress. So that is what I am hoping these new service chiefs will look at. I talked about equipment, I talked about training, I talked about welfare. So I'm hoping that they will pick all of these things, see what has been achieved, and then of course take it forward. In summary, they are going to inherit a very workable structure, and it's left for them to see how they can enhance that structure, where they need to improve on it, where there are gaps, like some of what I've mentioned, see how they can make sure that those gaps are closed. Again, it's a responsibility that both the executive arm of government and the legislative arm of government should support them. 2.3 trillion naira. If you look at other sectors like health and education, that it has surpassed those sectors, which is really not what we want. But then we need it because of the threat elements and the challenges that we're experiencing as a country.
Dr. Kabir Adabo, I just want to ask you this question before Kirian comes in. You were talking about the role of the former service chiefs led by the Chief of Defense Staff, as he then was General Lucky Irabo. We probably take it for granted now, but at some point in the course of the latter part of President Buhari's tenure, with the elections and the transition and then the swearing in, there seem to have been attempts to drag the military into the political terrain. And many observers would applaud them, or have applauded them, to say, look, they stood their professional grounds and leveraged the transition process. What are your thoughts on this?
Exactly. I made reference to the fact that several instances there would be an attempt by politicians to put the military in the forefront of some of these operations. I would refer to election security as an operation. But those generals, led by General Irabo, stood their ground. It is, in fact, the chairperson of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security is the Inspector General of Police and the INEC chairman. What more would that speak? Despite the fact that the military did play a role. In fact, in the case of Lagos, you recall when everything went south, it was the military that came to our rescue in that instance. So they did play a role, but they played it in a laid-back manner without owning the credit, and that is what we need. That is the kind of professionalism that growing up, I mean, whenever you see the military, you know that things have really gone south. There's trouble. But today, the military is almost everywhere. So I think that attempt by the immediate past service chiefs to take the military back to its professional role should be commended and should be carried over. And that is also a lesson to our politicians. The legacy of military rule over the past years has left us with an assumption, as it were, that the entire security sector, and I'm hoping we'll come to that conversation, where we'll be able to show what the security structure currently is. The military is just 4 out of about 29 agencies that we have. So they are important, but they do not represent the security structure. And in a democratic setting, their role is very clear. Unlike in the past, where they were heading the government, and so they played a bigger role. In the last 4 years of the Fourth Republic, and of course the previous republic before that, there have been an attempt for us to increase the democratization element, not just within the civil space, but also within the military.
Yes, even people like me, persons would know that there was good reason for the military to be drafted during the elections, because in Enugu State, for instance, then the tension was so high, that criminality, hit the roof, and the planning, there are gangs and what have you. Without the military, that would have been easy. So it's very important. Now, I hope time will allow us to do this. Let me return to General Temlong. Let's talk about the police here. Because, as a matter of fact, it's known that Nigeria is under-policed in the first place. So, and that is why the military comes in to provide some level of assistance. Now, what do you expect the incoming IG of police to do? He has already spoken to Nigerians saying that, look, he's going to fight like a lion. And all that. Now, looking at the police structure in the first place, the kind of personnel that we see on the streets along the highways, there are policemen, poorly equipped, poorly dressed, looking hungry, and of course, their activities on the highways. Perhaps because of they're also underpaid. Perhaps because they're carrying guns authoritatively. And what have you? I have had a cause to, question a one-time IG of police on the issue of the tattered nature of our policemen and poorly equipped policemen elsewhere, not even in the Western world, just across the border. Go to Ghana, go to Cote d'Ivoire, you see policemen, Senegal, properly kitted, ready for action. You don't see policeman who's sitting down sleeping somewhere and got lying by his side and stop, perhaps because he has gotten tired or lost his steam and what have you. So what should be done to bring back the police that we used to know? The police that when you see a policeman, if you're a criminal, you wouldn't even you wouldn't even take any action or even conceive any idea of carrying out any action. How do we bring back the police, well-trained police, equipped police, so that we can, have peace in this country, especially in the rural areas?
Thank you very much, Krillian. I think you have hit at the core of this problem that we're facing in our internal security setup in this country. The Nigerian police, as it were, I think the new IG, like I said, has a Herculean task. He has to do a lot of self-introspection, and then throw away national pride and prestige. He should forget about the institutional pride. Things are bad. Like you rightly pointed out, the Nigerian police as it were now, as it is now, do they command even the respect of those they police? The answer is no. 2, are they really looking as professionals and they know their onions? Very few of them. 3, if you ask them what is policing, or if you ask somebody who wants to join, a civilian now who wants to join the police, and ask him why does he want to join the police and what does he think policing work is all about, he will tell you, and I'm sure 99% will tell you that is to stand on the road waiting to take kickbacks and the rest. That's the way they see policing. Now, even at the senior level, you find out that every time you say we are combat ready, police is not supposed to be combat ready. Police is supposed to detect, prevent crime. It is when those two fail that you fight. Because when you fight, you are reacting. But when you are able to detect and prevent, you are being proactive. And that's what you need about policing. So, do we have the required or requisite manpower to do those things? No. Like you rightly pointed, we're under police. 2, do they have the critical infrastructure that are required to build up this manpower? Your guess is as good as mine. 3, have the police actually look at their career progression just like the way the military do? Because you have so many military training institutions that prepare you from point A to B. Because when you leave depot as a soldier, before you become an NCO, you go for an NCO's course. You go for platoon sergeant's course. You go for all these courses. How many of those are available in the police? You see somebody leaving from the depot, from their depot, he becomes an inspector, probably has gone only on one course or even none. So how will he meet policing in this 21st century where these Yahoo boys are IT? So I think we need to look at it and see and do something like what General, I've told, in fact, I told Mr. Solomon Erase when he was IG, and I was president ANDEC because he is an alumnus of the National Defense College. And thank God when he became the chairman of the Police Service Commission, we have been talking with him. I said we need to look at certain things. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel has been invented. In 1976, General Anjuma, when he took over the army in 75, he found out that the army had officers who had reached the rank of generals without even going to staff college. That is a requirement for you to even get to lieutenant colonel. But you had people who had been colonels who had attended only one course. It wasn't their fault because they were coming out from the Civil War. So what did he do? He went to Britain and got the British Army training team to come and establish the Command and Staff College, to come and set up a British Army training team at Jaji, at the School of Infantry. And all of us, a lot of us, 90% of us then went through rigorous training at that period. And it changed the face of both the officers and soldiers in the army. And that was the beginning of the building of the modern Nigerian army. Now, do you want to do something like that for the police? Yes, I think so. Because you need to see people who will train them in the proper art of policing. Policing in the 21st century, not what is happening now, because you are bringing somebody who sees policing as a way of extorting, not as a way of protecting the people they are supposed to do, to come and train somebody. Is that spirit is going to imbibe in him? So I think we need to look at these things seriously. And then the manpower.
General Temlong, sorry, we're pressed for time, for this first topic, because we have a second topic to equally discuss on Good Morning Nigeria. We know that, of course, we can always reach out to you for you to share your wealth of experience and knowledge on security matters. So we're going to have to terminate the conversation at this point. But I just want Dr. Kabir Adamu to say a few things in a few seconds as well. Because part of what General Temlong was speaking on in his last comment had to do with the complementarity in our security architecture. We're talking about, of course, police. We've not had the opportunity of drilling into the intelligence core of the various services and the 20-something odd other agencies. So the military isn't alone. What should we expect of the others, briefly?
Performance. Their mandate is clear. All of them are backed by law. There is not a single one of them that is operating without their operational mandate. And for me, that should be the function of the presidency. Make sure they stick to those operational mandates and then measure their performance. Where there are failures, then of course penalty in some form should come in. I don't think there is anything more than that. Customs, as an example. Why do we have weapons? Most of those weapons, we don't produce them in Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Kabir Adamu, security management, security risk management expert. We appreciate you this morning. I will always be with you when we bring such topics. General John Temlong, first commander of multinational joint task force, former president of the Alumni Association of the National Defense College, and security consultant. We thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Pleasure, Kingsley. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we shall be dealing with the second topic for conversation, and that has a lot to do with marketing. Stay with us.